Prelude this morning, Comfort Ye My People by
Amen.
George Boheme. We light our virtual chalice this morning with the words, my colleague Dawn Fortune. We light this chalice as a symbol of our free faith. We light this chalice to remember the miracle of the oil that burned for 8 days. We light this chalice in remembering the visions of the holy that remind us we are blessed. We light this chalice to mark the nights of midwinter. We light this chalice as we wait for the sun to return. Start video, that we did. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester's online Sunday morning worship service. We're glad that you've joined us virtually this morning. It's an act of love that we gather in this way during this time of pandemic response. We hope that this service gives you an opportunity to pause for a few minutes to gather in community so that we might care for each other, take a moment to reflect on our own well-being and to discover opportunities for spiritual refreshment even as we are at a personal distance. We'll gather this way at least through the remainder of the fall. Through the next few weeks, our religious exploration program will be offering opportunities for children and youth to gather virtually as well. Please visit www.uucworcester.org for more information on these get-togethers, as well as other opportunities to meet for discussion and support. For safety purposes and so that we might come to know you better, as you're able, please list your name on your video feed. Please note that this service is being live streamed over Facebook and is being recorded and will be available on the church YouTube channel and the service archive on our website in the coming days. Following this service this morning, you're invited to join us for virtual fellowship hour by remaining on this Zoom channel. Our opening words this morning by Gwen Matthews. As December opens up before us, we welcome in the gift of reflection. We turn toward our holiday celebrations and search for common threads of meaning. We begin with Yule, the winter solstice, and we are invited to explore duality, cycles, and seasons, and to witness the Holly King being overcome by the Oak King. Yule reminds us that we all partake in the miracle of renewal. Hanukkah, the festival of lights, commemorates a time of miracles when the faith of the Jewish people sustained them to reclaim their holy temple and keep the light of the menorah burning for 8 days. Christmas, the celebration of Jesus' humble birth in a manger, offers us to revisit the miracle of birth and the desire to find saviors to heal the scars of humanity. Here in our church, you are just as much a holiday miracle as the turning of the earth, as persistence and dedication to a faith, as the creation of each new life. We see the love you give to others, the space you create to hold one another's joys and sorrows, and the generosity and spirit you entrust to this community. You are a holy miracle. This community is one of miracle makers. Our opening hymn, Rock of Ages, please join as you are able.
Has he got a mask on?
Can't tell.
We will pause for a moment while the technology catches up with us.
They started late, so I wasn't late.
Oh, right.
He was just doing the opening and I finally got on.
I gotcha.
Diane Meehan and Cheryl Lachey.
Mr.
I'd like to invite Robin Mickiewicz, the Religious Exploration Director of our congregation, to come forward for our Religious Exploration moment.
Hi, everybody. I don't know if I can be spotlighted, but behind you're seeing a example of what we did this morning on our ARI Zoom, we talked about all the holiday lights. We lit a menorah, we lit our Advent wreath, we lit our chalice. We talked about the Kinara and Diwali lights and the Yule log, and we saw a video about all the different beautiful lights of the holiday celebration. And then we made our own lights with messages of love and hope and wishes for our families and our friends. And it was just such such a lovely time to spend with the kids today. So we look forward to doing some more of that before we hit the holiday season. I'd like to also remind people that we have 5 more books to give away this week on the All Church Read. The book is called The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek. And we have a kids version too. If you're interested in putting your name in the chat, we can draw names later on tonight. Thank you.
In addition, I just want to remind families that there is a virtual visit with Santa at 4 p.m. this afternoon. For those who would like to have the opportunity to ask any questions, we'll have some trivia fun and some scavenger hunt fun, and we will all enjoy the season together. Thank you so much, Robin. Our reading this morning is by Victoria Safford, The Moment of Magic. Now is the time, now is the moment of magic, when the whole round earth turns again towards the sun. And here's a blessing. The days will be longer and brighter now, even before the winter settles in to chill us. Now is the moment of magic, when people beaten down and broken with nothing left but misery and candles and their own clear voices, kindle tiny lights and whisper secret music. And here's a blessing. The dark universe is suddenly illuminated by the lights of the menorah, suddenly ablaze with the lights of the Kinara, and the whole world is glad and loud with winter singing. Now is the moment of magic, when an eastern star beckons the ignorant toward an unknown goal. And here's a blessing. They find nothing in the end but an ordinary baby, born at midnight, born in poverty, and the baby's cry, like bells ringing, makes people wonder as they wander through their lives what human love might really look like, sound like, feel like. Now is the moment of magic. And here's a blessing. We already possess all the gifts we need. We already received our presents, ears to hear music, eyes to behold lights, hands to build true peace on earth, and to hold each other tight in love. We come once again to that time in our service when we're given an opportunity to share what is symbolic of our own efforts, of our own values, of that which is the product of the sweat of our own brow and our own genius. An offering that we do each time that we come together for this ritual of worship in order that we might sustain the mission and ministries of this congregation, which reflect all that we are and are yet to become. So I invite you this morning to share your offering with us by texting 508-231-5335 and following the instructions. Or you may visit www.uucworcester.org/donate and do the same there. At this time, the morning offering will be received. I'm going to stop share the screen in order that we might have an opportunity to share with each other. We come to that time in our service when we're given pause to consider what is deepest in our hearts or most profoundly on our minds, or in the work of our hands in the days that have transpired, or in the prospect of days to come, joys and sorrows which touch us deeply and are given another measure of meaning because of our capacity to share them in the midst of a company that claims us as a co-journeyer. So I invite those of you who have joys or sorrows to share to do one of two things: either to open your microphone so that I might call on you in turn to share your joy and sorrow on screen, or if you would like to have your joy or sorrow shared by me, you're welcome to place it in the chat on Zoom or in the comments on Facebook. Please precede that comment by please read, so that I can find those joys and sorrows quickly. Are there joys or sorrows to be shared this day? Pauline.
Good morning. Today is the first drop-off date for the shoe boxes. I will be at church from, it turns out, 1 to 3, and hope to see some people there. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's see. I have one. I have David Macheski writes, I have a joy due to family needs. I took a job with the Genesis Clubhouse, which I will be starting tomorrow. Congratulations, David. Are there other joys or sorrow? Oh, let's see. Evan Wilson.
Morning. Thanks, Aaron. I have a joy to share. It was a joy to join in community with folks from UUCW on a virtual advocacy day to the State House. So the power of Zoom is that our homes can be our offices, it can be our schools, and last Thursday it was also the State House. So I know Mara and I met with our representative, talked about some progressive items of legislation, and we were supported in doing this through the UU Mass Action. So it was a really nice opportunity to connect more with the statewide group. And I know a large handful of us from the church shared our commitment to progressive legislation, and then made some connections with our legislators. So again, it was a nice opportunity to start that connection, and look forward to bringing other folks into that opportunity as well.
Thank you so much, Evan. Let's see, Bruce and Cheryl Lachey.
Hi, I just wanted to share that my mother's nursing home is shut down again because they have again got COVID in the home. So if everyone could hold Shrewsbury Nursing Home and rehab in their heart, and hopefully people will be okay.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Rachel and Brian Keel. Rachel and Brian, do you have a thing to share?
No, we don't.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Susan Castaneda.
So I have a sorrow. The doctor that I work with on my floor at AdCare has COVID. So, and she has a disability, you know, otherwise. So my unit is going to be shut down for the second time because of, you know, an upswing of COVID positives amongst staff. And yeah, it's getting very, very frightening. But thanks for listening.
A virtual hug to you, Susan, from all of us during this very difficult time. Thank you for letting us know. Kim Napoleone shares, my friend Brian, who had a massive stroke in September, now has an infection in COVID. He is in Florida. We send all kinds of thoughts for healing to Brian and to Susan's colleague and all of those who are touched by this. He's in a care, Brian is in a care facility in Florida. So, and Diane Mann writes, thank you to all the people who have agreed to volunteer at the pantry this upcoming weekend. Your willingness to help during this pandemic warms my heart, as it does all of us. Are there other joys or sorrows to be shared this day? Let us be in the spirit of prayer and meditation. O Holy One, we come to this turning of the season full of many fears and preoccupations as we continue to endure this pandemic. We come this morning mindful of those who have been touched by this dis-ease. For our friends and our colleagues, for our family members, for the named and the nameless who continue to struggle and who continue to strive toward healing and wholeness. Let us embrace them with all that we have and all that we can do in order to stop the spread of this virus. And we are mindful too of those who have now gone before us, who have been taken all too soon, whose lives continue to give us meaning, whose work is ours to do now. That we find the courage and the energy to sustain our living in meaningful ways so that their lives continue to shine forth through us. We are a grateful people this morning, grateful for new opportunities, grateful for ways that we can serve those made vulnerable, and to work for a world where those vulnerabilities cease to exist. Grateful too for each other in this moment, for the opportunity to be together, albeit across our technology. Might we find in this space the care and comfort necessary to move into this next week and into the coming season with renewed hope, even as we hope for a cure for what ails us. Let us be mindful that it is required of all of us to do what we can, in whatever way we can, for all the people we can, so that we all might find wholeness, health, light, and love. Amen. And blessed be.
remember, reign of terror, king who murdered, pain forever, pain forever. Antiochus, the blood he spilled, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, so many killed, God, all of them, all of them. Antiochus, Antiochus. Our hearts he broke, he burned the Torah, ash and smoke, the crushed menorah, Antiochus, Antiochus. Arise, our hero, Judah save us, Christ, oh dear, victory gave us, freedom gave us. Maccabeus, Maccabeus. Oh, sing our songs and praise the Torah, like the wrongs and like
Been thinking a lot this week about the intersection between this story that many of us know so well and what we have been experiencing. And what's fascinating to me is the memories that continue to come back to me of my childhood, two in particular. One was the year 1979 when I stood in line in my own home church, the church that my father served in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's a line that I had stood in many times before. But this time it wasn't to go get milked tea, which was my favorite during coffee hour as a child. It wasn't a time when I greeted my father in line and asked for my allowance for that week so that I could skip out the back door of the church and head across the street to the small privately owned grocery store where they had a candy collection like none other I had ever seen as a child. It wasn't the time when I spent with my friends hanging out on the sideline of coffee hour, joking and laughing. I remember it being a time of fear and a time of hope. In 1979 in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, polio broke out again in the community, in the Amish community, and I was one of the 150,000 Lancastrians that stood in line to receive a small sugar cube with a polio vaccine in it. A few years later, it was an influenza epidemic, if I remember correctly, and the line wasn't at the church. This time it was at Franklin and Marshall College. And a new technology had evolved. Instead of a needle, they had a particular device when pressed up against your arm would pressure the vaccine through the tissue. This time we stood in very long lines. It was more than 150,000, if I remember correctly, and it was still a time when we thought, here we go again. I had forgotten all of those experiences until I began to see the news coverage about the impending vaccine, and all of a sudden I became flooded with these things. I went back in search of the pandemics that had plagued my childhood home, and the story ranged from the Spanish flu pandemic in 1918 to influenza pandemics and smallpox and polio. The host of times throughout our history when populations came together in order to be able to address the reality of disease and to do what was necessary in order for everyone to have a shot at health and wholeness. It was in that moment that I realized that Antiochus comes in many forms of dis-ease. And the Maccabean revolt that is so much at the heart of the Hanukkah story is very much the efforts right now of our scientific community to wage battle against this disease in a way that we might all benefit. But I am aware that it took an entire community response in order to kindle the lights of hope beyond the battle itself, to regain a sense of purpose, a sense that there was life to live beyond this moment, and that it took many, many souls, not only to kindle those lights, but to remember that time and to rekindle those lights as often as they gathered, so that no one would go unremembered. This Hanukkah season, I'm mindful of this as I have prepared and read the words of many colleagues and the history of Hanukkah and the history of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Again, I was particularly drawn to a passage by my colleague Daniel Cantor, who is minister of our congregation in Dallas, Texas, and son of Rory Cantor, whose husband David was hospitalized here, and Rory got to know a number of people in this community while they were here in Worcester. Daniel writes, Christmas and Hanukkah once upon a time were about struggle, hope, and freedom. Both stories are exile stories pointing out how even a glimmer of light can provide a lasting hope for triumph of all that is good. While we haven't together lost those moments in our modern interpretations, we've handed over a large portion of the narratives to the big box stores and the advertisers building us a happy holiday. These accounts once asked us to confront the evils of greed and the misuse of power and to see in human efforts a desire for peace and justice. A sad American reality is that they have turned them into a commercial bonanza and hyped up reasons to shop. This loss eats at the self-worth of those who struggle to meet ends, and it corrodes our genetically ingrained shared values that what is good for all is good for each, and it cheapens the holiday season itself. So what do we do with this? One answer is to study the stories more carefully and more fully with our families to see what is new in them for us. Another might be to confront the desire to have more things and instead cultivate a desire to do more good in the communities and the world, in our communities and world. So I asked myself, what's new about Hanukkah? And why is Hanukkah celebrated on or near the darkest point of the year? I hear you ask, and I'm glad you did. Well, according to one Jewish midrash, that is teaching, the connection between the holiday and the dwindling of the heavenly lights is not by chance. According to this teaching, the holiday occurs one solar quarter, 3 months after the day that the Holy One created the world, the day that light itself was created. And the first time that the light receded to the shortest of days became a moment of pause, which caused a reaction of the faithful to return the light, the gift of light, to the author of creation itself, which was accomplished by the lighting of fires, an act of gratitude for days of light. Such an act is reminiscent of the primal act by the firstborn of the divine Adam, who, when he experienced his first sunset, was filled with fear. As the teaching goes, it said that after he experienced his first sunrise and then that evening celebrated Shabbat, he took 2 stones and created fire and offered the first blessing over the fire. Blessed are you who creates the lights of the fire, he said. Words that are repeated on Shabbat when candles are lit. Actually, the Midrash says that it was after Adam committed his first sin that he experienced his first sunset. For me, that detail is telling. For while it's true that Adam's actions are often referenced as sinful, I would suggest that what happened is that Adam, through his actions, came into a deeper awareness of his own self, his vulnerability to the elements, expanding his knowledge through experience, and with this, the onset of fear, the ultimate human response to being conscious of one's own mortality and fragility. That primal fear which resides deep in the human psyche. And what did he do? He mimicked creation itself, creating light from the elements around him, and called this a blessing. This act of creativity to meet the challenge of darkness with the presence of light illumined something much deeper than fear in our primordial ancestor. And that is gratitude, a fundamental expression of kindness, by which I mean the awareness of one's kinship, of one's kind. Learning to become human, Adam imitated that creative energy from which humanity itself emerged, reflecting the creative potential of the energy itself to cast away the darkness. The story of Hanukkah is but a retelling of this primordial lesson. After 3 years of darkness, when the Greeks forced Jews into idolatry and rebellion, those who survived the onslaught kindled flames of gratitude and thanksgiving as they restored the integrity of their sacred space. But fire is not the only experience of illumination that is honored at this time of year. It is said that on December 9th and again on December 12th in 1513, that a vision of Mary, mother of Jesus, appeared to Juan Diego, an Aztec convert to Christianity. In these visitations, Mary requested that a shrine be built on the place of their meeting, but the bishop of the area demanded more proof of the vision before he decreed a church should be constructed. It then said that Juan Diego was to collect roses by the Virgin. And when he went to visit the bishop again, roses fell from the man's cloak, revealing an image of the Blessed Mother, an image that itself is said to have been burnt into the cloak itself. It's interesting to note that the vision of Mary by Juan Diego appears in the same place where the Nahuatl-speaking Aztecs worshipped the goddess Tonatzin, which means in the Aztec, in that particular Aztec dialect, our sacred mother. As one account puts it, an ancient Mexican story tells that before the Spaniards arrived, a lament of a woman crying was heard in the lake of Texcoco, saying, "My children, beloved children of Anahuac, your destruction is next." The priests thought it was the goddess Chuchocote, who prophesied the destruction of Anahuac. Shortly after the Mexican people's defeat, when the Spanish destroyed the great Templo Mayor and Tonanitzin's temple in Mexico City and Tepeyac Hill, the lament of the goddess was also heard, crying for her dwelling, which had been defiled by the invader. The same source concludes, given the above, the cult of the Virgin Guadalupe for Mexicans is no longer questionable, much less whether the appearances are real or not. The core of this epic story lies rather in the deep religious feeling that has continued for more than 500 years to bring millions of people to the Basilica of Tepeyac to ask favors from the Virgin and her miraculous intervention and to help heal our woes. The story of conquest and the story of the creative spirit that persists through and beyond conquest to heal and restore humankind. I find it interesting that both the story of Hanukkah, Tonanitzin, and Our Lady of Guadalupe all revolve around the experience of conquest, the destruction of sacred places, and the human response to this reality, which is to kindle hope by remembering our kindness, that we are all kin to that source of creativity which lights candles to dispel the darkness and envisions the sacred beyond humankind's capacity for destruction. In our own time, might we consider a vaccine itself the vision of humankind's capacity to dispel the darkness, to bring hope into the world which has seemed so destroyed in many ways by the virus itself? I'm mindful here as I think about the connection between these stories and what we are experiencing of the words of my colleague Erica Hewitt, adapted here for this occasion. She writes of candle lighting this time of year. We light a candle of hope for that which is best in us to rise, she says, and enliven our souls and our relationships. We light a candle for peace, for the courage to soften that which is rigid in our hearts, to find the soft spot and to stay with it. We light a candle in the name of joy, joy in the shape of gratitude for all that is our life, and joy in expectation of a world that we are building and creating with one another. May that world come quickly. We light a candle in the name of love as the creative force in our lives, the light that shines in the darkness with the full power of our faith. We know, says Reverend Bill Sinkford, how real the brokenness of the world is, but we will not give brokenness the last word. May this light bear our hopes as well as our faith in love, our faith in goodness, our faith in compassion, and our faith in justice. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness shall not overpower it. Amen. and blessed be. Our litany this morning is by Amanda Udis Kessler, adapted for this occasion. Please join as you are able. We light the Hanukkah candles in wonder, joy, and gratitude, each candle a miracle. When the Holy Temple was rededicated at the time of the Maccabean liberation battle, only 1 day's worth of oil remained, yet it burned for 8 days, so we light candles in remembrance. We rededicate ourselves
to the
the miracle of light in a season of darkness, to the miracle of trust in a time of anxiety, to the miracle of hope in the time of despair, to the miracle of faith in the time of cynicism. We rededicate ourselves to the miracle of wholeness in the time of fracture, to the miracle of courage in the time of fear, to the miracle of resistance in the time of oppression, to the miracle of peace in a time of violence, and in a time of suffering and frustration. We rededicate ourselves to the miracles of hope and love. Our closing hymn this morning, Don't Let the Light Go Out.
Light one candle for the Maccabee children, with thanks that their light didn't die. Light one candle for the pain they endured when the right to exist was denied. Light one candle for the terrible sacrifice justice and freedom demand. But light one candle for the wisdom to know when the peacemaker's time is at hand. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Light one candle for the strength that we need to never become our own foe. Light one candle for those who are suffering pain we learned so long ago. Light one candle for all we believe in, that anger not tear us apart. And light one candle to find us together with peace as a song in our heart. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. What is the memory that's valued so highly that we keep it alive in that flame? What's the commitment to those who have died that we cry out they've not died in vain? We have come this far, always believing that goodness would somehow prevail. This is the burden, and this is the promise, and this is why we will not fail. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears. Don't let the light go out, it's lasted for so many years. Don't let the light go out, let it shine through our love and our tears.
Our closing words this morning are by Lorenzo Bassman. Thus do we honor the great mystery of the universe, the source of all, which deems everything sacred by its power to unite us and give us the radiance that we bring forth together as we kindle the lights of love. We celebrate the spirit of life, wellspring of all that we perceive and imagine, as we look upon with reverence the wondrous great fortune which has been bestowed upon our ancestors throughout antiquity, and receive the blessings of their visions of hope. And we cherish the wonder of each thing, the order of the universe that binds us together with all of nature, for giving us life, for sustaining us, and for enabling us to reach this season. Amen. And blessed be.